Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and happy Monday to everybody. Happy President's Day today. Some of you are off, and you're getting to watch us here live, or maybe you're watching the replay later. But thank you for joining us. I'm excited for our guest today. This is going to be a lot of fun because we have a lot of history here. So my guest today is Master Aaron Lawrence, who has been in the martial arts industry for over 22 years. Hard to believe because he doesn't look older than 22 years old. He's the owner of Quest Martial Arts with 2 locations located in Los Angeles, California, serving over 550 active members. Mr. Lawrence is passionate about helping others to achieve their goals both on and off the mat. Master Lawrence, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having the opportunity to have me here, and welcome everybody. Hope you guys are having a good day. So I'm very amped, by the way, on your intro. I was watching the intro and I was like, I'm ready to work out.
Is that right? I love it. I love it. Hey, well, if you guys are watching live, please do us a favor and comment and follow us along in this conversation, and let us know if you have any questions. If you are checking us out from one of our Facebook groups like this one, and I'm going to guess that this is Juanita or Gabby. I'm going to just take a guess. This is Juanita or Gabby. If you're in a group, just make sure to put your name, because sometimes it just doesn't come up with your name. But what's cool about this interview, guys, is I have had the privilege and honor of knowing Aaron since, man, I mean, you were a young kid when you started. Here's a memory that I have that sits in my mind of you probably at your youngest. I was testing for 2nd degree black belt, and you and Justin Ichikawa were sitting on the panel. And I remember sparring with Mark Cox and Brian Nan, who are beating the ever-living shit out of me. And so I'm going from wall to wall. They're just beating me up left and right. And you and Justin and Jonathan Klein, I believe is who that was.
Wow, that
would run across the mat. You'd do a little dive roll. You'd wait on one side. Then we'd go to the other side. You guys would run across the mat, roll, and do a little dive roll. And I remember this because, I would watch the video of my test back. And that was maybe one of my earliest memories. But I remember you coming up the ranks, and what a phenomenal martial artist you were then and have become. And you've done everything from, traditional martial arts. You got into Hwang Do. You did full contact kickboxing. You were into the extreme martial arts before it was really cool. I remember you doing the, let's see, who was it? It was Mike Myers. What's that movie? What's that? The spy who shagged me, or
Austin Powers.
Austin
Powers routine for the tournaments. Yes,
I remember that.
Don't remind me that. Oh my Lord.
That was a good form.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
By the way, it is Juanita. Hello, Juanita. Great to see you. Thanks for always watching and supporting, guys. If you have not seen the Meticulous Moments podcast, you need to go check that out. Juanita is a great host. It has some amazing guests, and my wife is watching. She says that she remembers that day. She remembers. Yeah, and she said that you were so much fun to watch. And listen, she says as a kid, but man, I still love watching you do forms and watching you hit the pads and do your thing. And now your school has just blown up and blossomed. 2 schools now. So much to talk about. So let's do this. Since you and I have all the information, let's tell the audience.
Sure.
How did you get involved in martial arts?
Well, that actually is, it's a funny story. So I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, for those who know that area, in Woodland Hills, and we had my parents and we in our family, we had a landscaper. His name was Steve Clark. He helped, for those who maybe on here might know the name or not know the name, he was an amazing martial artist. He was an amazing mentor to me. Unfortunately, he's not here today, but he, in doing all that, he mentioned to my mom, it's like, hey, you should just get your kids and, to come by the karate studio. I teach there once a week or twice a week. He used to teach the Fridays and Saturday classes, the sparring class and the Saturday morning class. And, he's like, yeah, just bring him by. So, I came by, and then, one lesson turned into 2, and then, Mom signed me up. My dad had no idea what was going on. He's like, signed up for karate class. You signed him up to the green belt program or whatever it was. Like, no clue. But, that honestly, if it wasn't for that, I don't think he was probably the very first person that got me into the atmosphere of where I'm at now. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be here. So
Yeah, Steve Clark, for those of you in our American Tong Soo Do Alliance, I mean, that name goes back many, many years. I remember watching him in the martial arts ballets. He had experience in martial arts before he did Tong Soo Do and then got into the kickboxing. I knew that you guys had a close relationship, but I didn't know that he was the
He
person that
he
introduced you to Tarzana
he
Karate.
he was. Ironically, Dan Barnes was the gentleman who did my introductory lesson.
Okay.
But if Mr. Clark, Steve, he was the one that actually, said, hey, swing by, and then from there, my brother and I started when I was about maybe, I want to say 6.5, 7. It's been so long, so there you go. Add the years to my age, but I think around 6 or 7, and I've been going since. I hasn't really been one day where I've taken a break off of training. Just doing a passion for the martial arts, whatever it may be. So.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we got quite the audience right now. If you are watching and you have any questions for Aaron, now's your chance to ask. We're gonna talk about a lot of different stuff today, and again, we have this history where we start bringing up these names: Steve Clark, Dan Barnes, Tiffany Wing, all these I say OG black belts, from Tarzana and Tia Westlake Karate.
Right.
Wow, some amazing, phenomenal martial artists that we were so lucky to train with such good instructors and such talented martial artists. And I really don't say that lightly, because I mean, these guys were awesome. And so excuse us if we keep dropping names that maybe you guys don't know who they are, but those of you that have been with us for a long time, I think you know exactly who we're talking about. Now, you started, 6.5, 7. Your brother is how many years younger than you?
We're 18 months apart, actually. So we started at the same time, but I'm 18 months older. So.
Okay, cool. And you guys started around the same time?
We did. We actually had the same rank going all the way through. At a certain point, I maybe got a little bit of a head,
Mm-hmm.
As testing, a little different back then on certain things. There's always the pros and cons and everything, in every,
Right.
in ways. But he got to black belt, I got to black belt, and I kept going, obviously, but I definitely know, he enjoyed it, and it's still a part of him, whether he admits it or not. So
right. Hey,
Famous
Paul
Kramer.
Kramer is watching. Thanks. He says we're bringing up some memories. Let us know, Paul, if you have any memories that you want to mention of either Master Lawrence or myself, or just the old days. It's always what that's always when it comes to martial arts. When it comes down to it, that those memories, all the history that constantly comes up in every interview, every conversation. One of my favorite things about doing forums with Mr. Chikawa on Wednesday nights when we did them in Tia Westlake was just sit and listen to him tell stories about the guys that he trained with and the people that he learned from. And so, yeah, those are always fun. You and your brother trained, my brother trained with me, Justin. We started pretty close to the same time. Justin's 3 years younger than me. He ended up getting his black belt as well. But I think he was a lot like Neil, where it was something that he accomplished, but it wasn't something that consumed him like it did us. And then, of course, I have my youngest brother, Jacob Flame, who is also, a high level black belt in our organization, and really kind of took his own school to a whole new level, and he's still going strong. So it's just kind of neat. It's fun. It was fun training with my brothers, because we always had a built-in sparring partner. We had a built-in, practice self-defense or whatever. Sometimes that was a good thing. Sometimes that was not a good thing. How was that experience for you? Was it a good thing, or was it?
It was a good thing. It was positive. Ironically, when we were growing up, I was more of the forms guy, and he was more of the sparring guy. So we each had our own little, area where we kind of, excelled at. But we had some good exchanges, good ruffles, training and stuff. But we'd practice one steps, we'd practice self-defense. We were, for the most part, pretty, I would say, civilized, as far as training partners goes at home.
Right.
In class, we had a great time. But it definitely helped motivate me. And I would say, in general, just for motivation, just, having someone to train along with definitely goes a long way. Having an accountability person to, train with, go up the ranks with, it definitely makes it a lot easier, especially when you're, you don't want to go, or you're having a hard time going, basically. So.
Yeah. So Paul's watching. He said, "You remember getting schooled by all of you in free sparring. Don't worry, we all have those people that we remember that schooled us. But one time had the honor of free sparring Steve Clark and Tarzana. Oh my goodness, let me tell you, that guy could fight. That guy could fight. I remember one time, being I got my black belt when I was 17, and let's just say that my attitude was not totally in check at that time, and humble was probably not my middle name. And but Steve Clark definitely gave us some humble pie when we needed it.
He had a unique way of teaching, and that's one of the things I miss about him. I could tell you stories, but of certain things of how he used to humble people. Not what we would use nowadays, but there'd be certain things that I was like, I look back and I'm like, whoa.
Well, let's touch on that a little bit. And Juanita, I would love to have, both my brothers with me on the Meticulous Moments podcast. If I can make that, if I could get them on my podcast first, I'll definitely work on it. They're not exactly they don't love being online much, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get the Flame Brothers on there. That would be awesome. But Aaron, you were talking about, the old school martial arts way of teaching. And gosh, could you imagine if we taught now the way we did back then, those lessons? I mean, everything from being humbled. And when I say be humbled, like, you got out of line, you just get your ass handed to you. You think you're bad, I'm going to show you that you're not. If you thought you were good, Mr. Chikawa was very good at humbling us. We were talking pre-interview that he just came and did a form seminar at your school, and how he could humble you in a moment, at a moment's notice, doing forms. Like, you think you're good, you think you got, and he'd be like, turn your back foot forward, pull your hand a little tighter, or timing, all these details. And so I was teaching a camp today, and one of the things that I really focused on, and I think this is where it really comes down to how the old school teaching was different, is that I talked about today about never being good enough.
Right.
The enemy of excellence is good enough. We've heard that quote before, right? And I think that sometimes in society now, it's acceptable to be average. It's acceptable to be good enough. But man, our instructors were not that way. Being good enough was not acceptable. Giving a half-ass effort was not acceptable. They would pull out the absolute best in us. Now, the way they did it was definitely different.
Yes.
But again,
it got done though.
Go back and look at how many of our students, went into competition and got your black belts, and how, just amazingly strong, So again, yes, there's definitely some pros and cons, and failing tests back then was common. You would take a test and you would fail that test. Like,
you would fail not knowing what was happening. You'd be blindsided sometimes.
Yeah. And so, but it made a lot of us stronger. On the flip side, unfortunately, those people that were failed in that fashion probably lost a lot of motivation, lost the inspiration to keep going. And so they missed out on all the benefits of martial arts. That's the one downside. Is I remember we would fail people and they just wouldn't come back. And I think now sometimes if we keep, pushing them forward, it gives them a false sense of security and not being prepared. So there's definitely a balance either way, but
there's a balance.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, we were talking, the Grandmaster Ishikawa, he came to our schools. We had a seminar, we were talking about him this weekend, and I had a lot of my students were a little shell shocked in a positive way. It's a little bit more, I would say, serious in the nature of training, more serious training. And I think that's a good thing. I think, being put outside your comfort zone is a good thing. And, the way I explained it to the parents and the way I kind of pre-framed it to our students is like, look, this is an experience. It's the experience that you're getting. And, I agree. I think a lot of times, we're not expecting these certain things, like everything's kind of handed, but like, these experiences is what makes us and molds us to be, better practitioners, better at anything, is that stress pressure test in a sense. And I had so many parents come up to me and say, wow, they were a little like nervous themselves, but they were so grateful for the opportunity, because I think everyone needs, excuse my language, a little kick in the butt, kick in the ass sometimes to have that experience.
100%. 100%. And, you know, I've had Mr. Chikawa at our school, same experience. I have Mr. Cox at our school, same experience. You know, it is
Yeah.
important for us to get outside of our comfort zone. And like, you know, in our schools, our students are used to the way we teach and the way, you know, our energy.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you know, teaching the seminar today for my students, you know, they're used to my head instructor, who is a little bit more on the, you know, quieter side, not
Sure.
quite as like, you, I mean, you and I are very much alike to where people think we're on crack or something, like just like
What's that
full
guy
on,
on?
just
Yeah.
let's go, right?
It's
And-
one or the other. It's on one flip side. Sometimes, yeah, like I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea sometimes when I'm on the floor. So I can fully admit that, but you know, it's
well, I mean, it's always a question of, was it one monster or two?
yeah, there you go.
And so, but you know, watching the students react to me in a different way, it was like, okay, cool. Now they've gotten a little bit uncomfortable, and that uncomfortable situation
makes you
is
grow.
good to be able to, you know, to be able to grow. And of course, if I were teaching every single day, I might not teach the same way when I teach that one time, right?
Right.
Your students aren't going to react the same way. If Mr. Chikawa was teaching class every single day, you know, that's what you start getting used to.
Used to. Yes, exactly.
Right.
So.
And yep, good kick in the butt is good now and then, keeps the ego in check.
Yep,
100%.
I agree.
Totally agree. So, you know, you earned your black belt relatively early on, right? You were about 9, 10?
It's about 9.5, 10. I think it was in 93, if I did the math correctly. So
Mhm.
early on. And then, you know, one of the things, like you said, you know, a lot of our instructors in our association and organization, very talented. So, you know, I mean, as a student, as you know, as someone who wanted to learn, I wanted to learn and branch out a little bit and absorb as much knowledge. I think that's one of the very things I'm very grateful for. What is the opportunity to train with so many great instructors, like you mentioned, in our system, and the opportunity even to train a little bit outside our system. And I think I was probably one of the very first few. I think Grandmaster Cox obviously was with the Krav Maga, but I was one of the very first few to really kind of go outside the norm or the branch to really kind of like explore and kind of see what's out there and kind of implement things and things like that. So
now which did you explore first after Tong Soo Do? Because I know you did so many different things, and you're right. We had so many black belts that earned their black belt in Tong Soo Do, but also, you know, they were in kickboxing. There was, you know, the extreme competitors. There was the fighters, the forms guys. Mr. McMeekin, I remember, you know, would introduce Eskrima, and that's where we started 6. And then we had the convention, you know, and Tadashi Yamashita came in and taught the bow. That's how like Bohyung became part of our, you know, curriculum. We never really did that until then.
Right.
So what did you explore first after Tong Soo Do?
I'm gonna want to say I think it was kickboxing. I trained with you know, Mark Parra, House of Champions, who which again Steve Clark was kind of at that point kind of part of that school and that organization. Benny Yakitas, it was kind of that style. Actually, really, it was his students, really, the proteges. Pete Cunningham, all those guys. I mean, so I trained there, boxing, kickboxing. That's kind of when I got into more of the full contact training, which I was very grateful that I had really good basics from Grandmaster Chikawa, because again, the kicking was definitely my stronger suit. But definitely getting in a little bit into that. And I think after that, that's when I got into the other styles like Hwarang-do, Taekwondo. I did a little bit of so just at that point, I think that but the kickboxing, I think, was the first thing after Tong Soo Do, I believe, though. So
now you trained primarily at House of Champions. You did not train at the Jet Center.
I did not. No, I've been there. I was there once actually with Steve Clark. I think there was a thing he took me to, but HOC or House of Champions, no. And I still have a relationship with Mark. I actually talked to Sensei Mark probably once or twice a month now. So
Yep. So and there's been a lot of branches, just like Mr. Chikawa. I mean, everybody in Tong Soo Do in the, let's just say, Ventura County, San Fernando Valley area, has some kind of lineage directly to Mr. Chikawa if it comes to Tong Soo Do. Benny Ukidas, had his students that, HOC, I believe Sean Yakubian came out of HOC or the Jet Center, right? He's got an amazing school. And Pete Cunningham, I got to tell you, so I was so like in awe when I first saw Peter Cunningham, because I remember when I was a teenager, I think I think it was probably 17, maybe 18. My best friend and I, Marcus Brown, he did Tong Shido with Tom Bloom. And so, but we were always into the fighting thing, and we started really getting into kickboxing at that time. The movie Kickboxer was big. And I love that movie. I just watched it the other night. But Dennis Alexio, like I was always like, dude, Dennis Alexio. And so I got so excited about kickboxing that we went, we're young teenagers. We bought tickets. I had to borrow my grandpa's credit card to buy the tickets at the time. Bought tickets to go to Vegas to see Dennis Alexio, Kathy Long,
nice,
Peter Cunningham, Stan the
Ricky
Man.
O'Kane.
I think he was on the show.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but I remember watching Peter Cunningham, and I was like, that dude is a stud. And of course, he was in the movie No Retreat, No Surrender.
Right.
I had Dale Jacoby on the podcast not too long ago. But seeing, Pete Cunningham, wow, amazing martial artist. I would love the opportunity to get him on this show as well, so I can talk with him. And Mark, I want to reach out to Mark and get him on here. So, so you had a chance to train with all these amazing people.
Yeah, I had a chance. I'm so blessed. I mean, just to get a chance to train with, all those people. I also forgot to mention, boxing as well. That's when I really got humbled. When I was a teenager. I was training at Hollywood Roach, Freddie Roach's gym, Wild Card Boxing, and that's when Michael Moore was training to fight Evander Holyfield, Lucia Riker. A lot of the big professional names were there. So yeah, I just been very blessed. And before I forget, I want to thank my parents, and especially my dad for, taking me to all these places. Cause I mean, you need, like I said, you need a accountability support system. So, I wanted to make sure I didn't forget that before I,
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you were very fortunate. You had very supportive parents. I mean, I can't remember a test, a tournament, anything that you did that your mom and dad weren't there to support you. And so I think that, that's a huge kudos to them, right? Amazing job parenting you and giving you not only the opportunity, but the support to succeed I mean, look at you now. Look at, how you started at 6 years old and now running 2 very successful schools. You've had a great career in all the different sports, but I mean, that really is, the support from your parents. And so any of my students that are watching right now, students, parents, especially, you have no idea, or maybe you do, but the support you give your children and even your older children as they continue to move up through life, your support is so important. I know that I was lucky. If my parents didn't believe in me to do martial arts, opening a karate school at 19 years old, man, that would have never happened. I mean, most people would go to their parents and say, I'm going to start my own business at 19. I'm going to run a karate school. Most parents would say, go to school, save some money. Yeah. My parents were like, go kick ass. That's awesome. Do what you love, and so thank God you had parents that pushed you, supported you, and
100%.
And now, so your parents, what I remember most, your parents had the trophy shop, right? They always did all the trophies. And so did you ever work at the trophy shop and
No, everyone always asks me that. No. So just a little background for everyone watching. Yeah. My dad, he still does. I mean, very successful. He's been doing it for over 45 years. He had he has a trophy sign business. And, especially as kids, he every once in a while I'd go to work with him. I kind of see, what he did or what he does. And I think probably just seeing so many trophies over the years of training and competing, I didn't really want to be near trophies. But yeah, I helped out obviously as a kid. As kids, you start to, you put trophies together, watching TV every once in a while, helping out the family. So, but no, I haven't officially, didn't really work. My first job, and we'll probably get into this, but my first job is what I'm doing now. I mean, it's teaching martial arts. A lot of people do not know. I have actually never worked in any other industry. I haven't done anything. This is the only thing I've done since 6 years old. So.
Yeah, that's amazing, and we are going to get into that, in just a second. But one of the things you talked about, your dad being in the trophy business and 45 years. I mean, wow, right? Your dad has an amazing work ethic, and I think that you learned a lot of that from him because you hustle and you grind and you work.
I still do, and I'll tell a quick story if that's okay. I mean, just based on perseverance and just a lot of people again might not know this, but in 2019, his actual business burnt to the ground. I mean, there was an accident in the in the shop, and it was no one's fault. It's just one of those things that machines sometimes catches on fire, and everything gone. And a lot of people could just say, been 45 years, good run, but he picked himself back up and rebuilt. That's perseverance. And I think that's hopefully where I get a lot of my drive and perseverance from, is seeing things like that, and just not giving up even in situations that just seem dire, because it's a pretty dire situation. So
right, I mean, yeah, absolutely. You have your business that you've built up for X number of years, and boom, everything's gone. I mean, we faced this during COVID as well, right? I mean,
oh yes,
COVID was not.
I'll tell you. I have the stories on that, but yeah, we can get into that. But yeah,
I've
been the ringer through that. So
absolutely. Well, being in LA County, you had it a lot. You had it a lot worse than some of us did out here in Ventura County. I mean, you were
Right.
literally shut down. I mean, you were teaching outside the church in a parking lot. For how long?
You name it, we did it.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, to give you the short answer on this one, I would say yes. During March, whatever it was, March, April, whenever it was, I can't remember now. For a while, we were online only.
Yeah.
Then we went into outdoors, only with online. And then eventually, we were probably online and outdoors for at least a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, at least, so, and then recently we had a car crash through our storefront, luckily no one was there, and we were outside again during the summer heat. So
that's so crazy.
Resilience, so
training outside is almost the norm now. I remember when we would take our classes outside, for fun. Like it would be just like kind of, oh, let's do something different. Let's throw on shoes. Let's go outside, do our forms, or let's go outside and fight. And now it's become, and having the Krav Maga program in my school now too, being outside and training it's almost like refreshing. Although I don't know what's going on in California with this cold front. Everybody else on the East Coast is going to make fun of us, but like, dude, when it's in the 30s and 40s, I'm freezing and I don't want to be outside. I'm just kind of tired of it. But training outside is actually, I mean, COVID, if anything, it was all bullshit. I hate all of it. But I will say that it made us think differently. I remember it distinctly. We were like, what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to go down to teaching private lessons, one-on-one, or having, 4 people in the room. And then everything snapped. Everything just got pulled out from under us. And so we learned how to use Zoom. We learned how to go online. Right. And we just figured it out and just went. And then so many things, my head instructor now was an assistant instructor at the time.
Right.
And he got thrown onto Zoom, and dude, this guy's teaching skills went from like, pretty good to freaking amazing.
Right? Yeah. We had the same situation.
When you're online and you got to entertain the kids, keep them from jumping on their couch or, just kind of sitting there doing nothing. I mean, so being able to do online, I mean, heck, this podcast was born out of COVID because I wasn't teaching at the time, and I needed something to get my energy out. And I thought this would be a great idea, and it's turned out really, really well. So, the online thing, being able to go outside and use that as kind of a normal training, just the teaching skills. And also I think, our communication with our students got better, because we had to do everything, digitally, had to do everything online, and keep them up to speed and keep them seeing the value in martial arts, because, martial arts is a lot of physical, and you can keep a lot going, but when you take that away, there's a whole lot of other aspects that came into play. So I will say that it changed us for the better, but dude, some of it just sucked. It was terrible.
I agree. I agree. It was challenging, but I again, we came out of it stronger than before. So I think we grew. We definitely grew from it. All myself, my team included. We were. Put, just like we kind of mentioned with my, Grandmaster coming to our, seeing our students, we were put under stress. We were put under a pressure test. And, every once in a while, a pressure test, once you pass it, you're going to be coming out. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the way you grow. I mean, honestly, in my opinion. So.
Now, listen, I was 19 when I opened my school. You were like 14?
Okay, so yeah, there's a story here. So I'll give you the story of how I started getting into kind of where I'm at now. So when I was about 14, so I was training obviously from 9 to 14 or whatever it is, or 9 on, doing all the styles and stuff like that. My family and I, we moved a little bit more up north. A lot of people might know it's like the Grapevine area, Pine Mountain Club. It's like a little outside of LA. Outside of LA, it's about an hour and a half. About I would say about 100 miles. Just open road. So in doing that, I had very supportive parents. My dad still and my mom, still wanted me to stay active training. They knew how important it was for me. So we would drive down to, the LA County area, the Valley area to do, certain things. He would take me, I would do my training. But on the other days, I still needed, a place to train. I still needed to stay active to practice. Cause again, I competition is one of the things that kept me going. And, you got to practice, you got to train and all those things. So on those other days, so we found a little 900 square foot storefront, got some puzzle mats, took the mirrors off my closet that you see here, very similar to this one I have here, use that as mirrors. And I rented out, my rent was $300, back then for 900 square feet. It's a very small town. And I had a little school. I mean, obviously a 14-year-old can't sign the lease. He was on the lease, but I mean, I opened the checking account. That's when I opened up my first checking account at age 14, and I taught classes. I was there 3 days a week. I was there from 3:30 to 7 o'clock. I would teach the classes, lock up, clean. I mean, I did that for about 3 or 4 years. Again, not knowing all the business systems that I know now, being young, and still going to school, obviously full time, we probably built it up. I built it up to about maybe 30, 40 students at the time, but, good life lesson kept me training. And that's usually that's, I always say I accidentally got involved in opening the schools. It wasn't really, I was just like, my dad was the one who kind of said, "Hey, why don't you do this?" I'm like, okay. Like, it wasn't really like a thought that I had. It was more just, I was kind of put in the situation, which I'm grateful for, of course, obviously. So.
Right. So you built that up to 30 or 40 students at like 14, 15 years old. What was it like running a small business? And also going through, I mean, that's high school age, right? And
God, mean, I had students that were in my class.
Yeah.
That's how awkward and weird it was. So I'd be teaching class, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" So, it's weird, because obviously, you're at a young age, you're teaching your friends in a sense. And, at that age, you don't have that maturity level to distinguish, students, all
right.
that stuff. But to lesson,
1 minute, 1 minute you're Aaron, 1 minute you're Aaron, and the next minute you're Mr. Lawrence.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which cool name, by the way. Like, too bad your name wasn't Johnny.
I know. I was going to wear my Eagle Fang shirt today also.
But you are Mr. Lawrence. But yeah, that's a hard thing to balance, basically teaching kids your own age. And, as you continue to, age, you would still be, I mean, I joked earlier about, you've been doing for 22 years and you don't look much older than 22. You're still a young guy, right? And so you've always had to teach people either your age or much older than you.
Yes.
What was that experience like for you, and how did you have the confidence in yourself to be able to lead, other people and not really knowing how to lead at that time?
I didn't know anything when I first started. I'll tell you my first experience, and just to make sure the story's clear as well. I mean, I after teaching at where I was in my own little location, I also taught at Tarzana Karate, which was where I first started teaching with Rio Altai. And I'm grateful for that experience. I'm grateful for him for giving me that opportunity as well. But I remember my very first Little Dragons class. I think it was, I don't know where it was. It was either there or it was at the one. I literally at like 16 years old, I was like, I can't do this. I walked off the mat like that. I was like, I had no clue what I was doing. Because no one really taught me, I just thought I was good at martial arts. So I'm just going to hop on the floor and teach. And I think that's how a lot, at least back then, that's how a lot of people got started. You're just really good at something, so you might as well teach it. Nowadays, we have our leadership programs. We have all these, teaching skills that we teach all of our students. There's any of those students, people watching, it's like, they don't realize how easier it is now to make a transition to be, you know, an instructor than it was
Mhm.
back then. It's just, you know, none of that stuff was there. But the young dragons were tough. The adults were tough because, again, you know, I'm the 17-year-old, 18-year-old teaching a 35-year-old about self-discipline. It's tough, you know, but you know, the more you do something, the more you comfortable you get doing it. And I knew that if I kept doing it, it would get easier every single time. So
Mhm. Well, it's funny, you know, you mentioned that a lot of martial artists get started teaching, or at least they did back when we started teaching. I'll never forget, you know, it was the first time I ever led a class, maybe not necessarily teaching, but, you know, the instructor didn't show up. Someone didn't show up, and Mr. Chkau or one of the other instructors looks at me and says, "Hey, go warm up that class." What do you
yeah.
want me to do? I don't know. Whatever you want to
Oh,
do,
teach class.
right? Just go teach class.
Right.
And I distinctly remember at 17 years old when I earned my black belt, Brian Fujitani earned his
Yep.
second degree black belt at the same time. And we were both, we the way we did it back then was, you know, you would test and then you would have a belt presentation, or just the very next class,
Yep.
you would get your belt.
Mhm.
So we had just been presented my first degree black belt. He earned his second degree black belt. And he says, "Okay, the class is all yours."
Awesome.
No, not like, we didn't know in advance that he, right. And he's all, "So you get 30 minutes and Brian, you get 30 minutes. What do I do? Whatever you want to do. What do you
Whatever you
like?
do.
What do you like? What do you want?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And so much trial and error, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
so much trial and error. I mean, so many things that
Well,
we did wrong,
but
but
that's what you learn. Yeah. So
that's how we learned, right?
that's
And
how
you're
you
right.
learn.
Now we take time to put our students through specific leadership training, right? And we build them up. I mean, we build them up. I don't know about you, but usually in middle school, sixth grade is my minimum. As soon as they're in
Mhm.
sixth grade, they're eligible to enter into our leadership training program. And
Yep.
every 3 months, we cycle through our leadership curriculum. And it's
Yep.
every, you know, it's a set class every Saturday. And whether you want to be an instructor or you just want to gain some valuable leadership skills, because leadership skills don't necessarily have to be about martial arts. It has to do with, how do you communicate with
How do you
people? How
communicate?
do
How do
you
you
relay the information? How, you know, and building your confidence of getting up and standing there. I mean, how many sixth graders, you know, stand up in front of their class and they're already super comfortable to give a report, but our students are, because they're taught
they're used to it.
those
Yeah. They're
leadership
taught to it.
skills, right? So that's
Yeah.
super important, and that's how we build, you know, build our teams. But man, I mean, I remember coming up to Pine Mountain Club, and you had your mat and your mirrors and your school. And now what I don't remember is how many people achieved the level of black belt through that program.
You know, honestly, that's a good, it's been so long. I don't think I actually had anyone get to black belt. I think I had one student get to like black belt candidate.
Uh-huh.
Leaf, I don't know if you remember him actually.
I remember.
He was bad. He was a bad guy. He was cool. But I didn't, you know, again, I didn't really have a lot of the systems and tools and retention tools that we have nowadays. You know, I was this young 14-year-old, 15-year-old. Honestly, the school was mainly for me to work out and to teach, and you know, I think the business was really secondary to what it was for, really, to be honest.
Hmm.
But again, I gained a lot of valuable skills. You know, you got to show up on time, you got to treat people with respect, you know. So all these leadership skills that we teach our students, I learned it kind of firsthand, just kind of under trial, just kind of just, you know,
Hmm.
learning parents personalities, learning student personalities. I had this, I'll tell you a quick story really quick. I had a parent. This was at that location. I had a parent, probably a little loose screw in his head, and his daughter was in class. His daughter was around my age, and you know how it is. Some people, it's like, "Oh, you're a black belt. Can you kick my ass?" You know, this and that. It's like, and I don't know what I said. I was, knowing me, I'm pretty humble. I kind of, just, kind of keep people at ease and just kind of like, okay, yeah, 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 carry on the conversation.
Hmm.
And he just kind of like gives me one of these like slaps on the head, or he just kind of like puts his hands on me. So I jump, turn, and back kick him. And again, I'm like, I don't know. My first
Whoa.
reaction is to jump back kick this guy, and he's just like, whoa, okay, cool. And again, I was underage, so it's like, I don't know. It's like that's those are some of the vivid memories that I have. Just, can't do that now, but
That's hilarious. And knowing how good your back kick was, like, he probably went, "Oh shoot, wrong kid to mess with."
he stopped. Anyway, yeah.
So
Random story.
you you talked about how, then at that time, being a younger teenager, the business was not the priority, right? It was all about the martial arts, having fun, enjoying what you're doing. Business was totally secondary. At one point in your career, the business became, I won't say more important, but the business side became more of a priority
Yes,
in order to continue what you were doing, right? Because
absolutely.
then you
Absolutely.
opened out in Reseda, and you had like a full-time school. And at what point did you seek out consulting and getting a mentor in your business to help you go to the next level?
Yeah, so just to fast forward really quick on that. So, being up north, I was there until I was 18. Fast forward, I actually moved back down to the valley where I used to live when I was 18. I decided to open my first storefront at 18, actually. I lived at home. That had definitely helped. I won't deny the fact, supportive parents living at home definitely does help.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, I was also teaching, like I said, at Tarzana Karate. I used to promote tournaments. I don't think a lot of people know how I actually got started. And being in that tournament community over the years, I learned how tournaments are ran. I know who school owners are. I know who those competitors are. What helped me get my school started really was promoting tournaments at Tots High School, which is a nearby high school,
Mm-hmm.
and saving money, and purchasing mats, purchasing mirrors as we get along. And that's really how I got started in my main physical location.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 3 years, I moved to my Reseda location when I was 21. And that's when we grew, obviously, because we were a bigger established school. I was the one man show. I think that was the point where I realized I needed more help being the one man show, which everyone has to do. I mean, look, we all have to pay
Mm-hmm.
our dues. I'm not, but teaching, cleaning, psychologist. I mean, you name
You
it. I
name
mean,
it.
you name it, we did it.
Yep.
And I think at that point, I remember one day vividly, I almost broke down in tears because I was like, my heart was there. I really wanted to make this work,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have the techniques. I didn't know the strategies. And I think actually you were the one of the very first ones that introduced me to Maya, the systems, the Super Show, and a lot of the mentors and a lot of the people that we probably both know now,
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I actually, you were probably the one that honestly opened those doors as far as letting me see that. And I obviously, myself and my dad even kind of took me the push to, to kind of get started. So,
Right. Well,
thank you for that.
listen, I remember your tournaments. We were, my school was already, pretty established still, that was even prior to me getting really involved with Maya, but I remember going to your tournaments, and it was, you guys you ran a really well-run tournament,
Yeah.
and you had that experience from going out to all the open tournaments for a while and getting that experience. And, those were some really good times of having those tournaments. And we had kind of a nice little, inner tournament circuit, if you will,
Yeah.
like just within the alliance, where we would kind of bounce from, each other's tournaments and support each other. And, I remember those tournaments at Taft for sure. And so you use that money to build up, and then you open your first school. And then, yes, I joined Maya, I want to say
2006.
2006.
I remember joining 2006, and I think you did one seminar before me, I believe. But it was around 2006 is when I signed up, so I would imagine to be around there. So
I think the first Super Show that I ever went to was in 04.
okay,
I went 04, and then went back in 05. And I'm not sure when, but we and then of course, so Mike Metzger is the name that's going to come up, right? Because you and I both shared in working with Mr. Metzger, and someone that, wow, talk about, Mr. Chikawa was our martial arts guru. Everything about forms, everything about karate,
basics.
He was our Mr. Miyagi, right? But Mike Metzger, I always call him the martial arts Yoda, or the business Yoda, because that guy, holy cow, took us to a whole new level. So what do you remember most about starting as a client with Maya, and having a consultant? Because what I remember is being super uncomfortable, very hesitant to make change. As a matter of fact, I'm in a friend's shop right now, right? That's where my podcast is held. And Nothing But Healthy, guys, go check out Nothing But Healthy. But I was talking to Seth about, if we always do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we've always gotten. And so I was just like, I was not having it. He was
Yeah.
suggesting changing programs and schedule and pricing. And I was like, dude, I can't do this. Not in my area. You'll hear every martial arts school in the country say that. Not that doesn't work in my area.
Yeah.
Just so you know, it works in every area
Works
if
in
you
every
work it
area.
right. But what do you remember? Was it the same for you? Was it really hard to make the switch?
You know, yes and no. I mean, it was, and certain points definitely were. I mean, the floor, obviously, anything, you know, when it came to floor retention, I felt pretty confident on making changes. I mean, you know, as far as, you know, the way we, you know, build rapport with students, things like that. But a lot of the business systems, the way we structure programs and the way we do presentations and just the overall scheduling, I mean, I was uncomfortable, but I also told myself, like, look, what I'm doing is not working anyway, so I really have nothing to lose, you
Right.
know. So it's like I figured, you know, because at that point, you know, I don't know how much it was at that point, but it was a hefty, you know, monthly payment.
It was
Making
$1,000
Yes,
a month.
it was okay. Now
And then it went to
what it was.
$1,500 a month.
Yes, yes. Um, a big commitment for a 23-year-old. I was 23 at the time, and you know, I remember, you know, being at the Super Show, and I'm like, my dad was there. He's like, just do it, you know. It's like, you know, and I'm glad I did, because again, you know, I just basically, you know, I had the discipline just to listen to what he said. I followed the systems. I asked
Mhm.
questions, and I think I honestly, the first seminar or two, my head hurt so much on just information overload. It was just like unbearable. But you
Mhm.
know, I did everything we did, you know, and you know, fast forward, you know, before that I had no employees. I mean, I hired my first employee, you know, and or employees, you know, after doing that, getting help. And I think when you start seeing progress, I think that's when you become more confident. Also, you know, I
Mhm.
think that helps a little bit. Just kind of seeing, wow, you know, we were, you know, here, now we're here, and it works. You know, get a little more confidence in yourself. So I think, you know, seeing the results a little bit, you know, definitely helped a little bit in that end, in regards. So
I remember Mike Metzger one day telling me, because I just kept resisting. I can't do it, can't do it. And finally one day he goes, "Will you just shut up and do what I told you to do? And if you don't like it and it doesn't work, you can always go
yeah,
back."
yeah,
He's all, "But just trust me."
just trust me. Yeah.
And I was like, "All right." And I did, and I was wrong, and he was right. And then you know, I've been fortunate to be on the other side as a consultant working with, and I would share that experience with him. Like, look, guys, I've been where
In your
you've
shoes.
been,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I know what you're feeling now, right? And you can see that too with your staff members. You know, when your staff member is having a challenge, you're like, look, I've been here, I
Yeah,
understand, you know.
yeah.
And that really plays a role in being that mentor to somebody else, and the instructors to the students, you know, when you can kind of really relate on a certain level. Because you know, we've all been there, we've all had, you know, our different struggles. And
Right.
you know, we gotta trust our parents, we gotta trust our mentors, we gotta trust
It's
our teachers, trust our
it's trust.
instructors.
It's trust. You said it. It's trust. I mean, it's literally trust. I mean, you know, it comes down to, do you trust me or not? You know, and
Hmm.
I have that I have that same conversation with my students and also my staff. You know, when we you know, one of the reasons I feel we I mean, we are successful now. I mean, I don't really take all the credit. My staff is you know, is what is the driving force behind our locations. But you know, with them though, I mean, you know, you know, I try to plant the vision, plant the seeds, plant, you
Hmm.
know, what the overall, you know, vision for the company and everything that we want to do. And that's trust. You know, you got to trust me as, you know, as your leader. You know, you trust me as your instructor. I got to trust. You know,
Hmm.
anytime you're taking advice, you got to trust that, you know, process, obviously. So
So you did not have the goal necessarily at 14 years old. You didn't say, "Hey, I want to open a karate school and that's what I want to do for the rest of
never,
my life," right?
never,
And
never.
then you opened the school, the first school, then the
Yes.
second school, and then now you have a second location. When you had your first location in Reseda, did you set a goal to open a second location? Was that the goal, or did that happen out of, you know, having a lot of staff and someone wanting an opportunity? Which was it for you?
Honestly, we had growing pains. It was more we had a waiting. That's I mean, you know, I was telling my consultant, Mr. Metzger, that, you know, Mr. Metzger, it's like, you know, can't sign people up. What do I do? Well, I mean, you know, you got to open a second location, you know, or you have to have enough staff in order to obviously do that. And I was really hesitant for a very long time, because I'm a little bit of type A personality. I like kind of doing things the way I kind of like doing.
You think?
Yeah, I think, yes. And I was totally like resistant on it. But I am so glad that I did. I will tell you this: I am less stressed now with two schools than I was with one school. I really am. It's just I don't know. I think having the two schools really kind of put me a little bit more in the driver's seat, which obviously I enjoy teaching, but obviously getting to teach when I want to teach and having to teach are two different things, So, but yes, the second location was really not my idea. So it just kind of happened. But again, I'm glad it kind of happened though, because again, we were at a plateau. We needed to make that decision. Either you're going to make a change or something's going to change on its own. I mean, that's the way it is in life. I mean, if you don't make a change, someone will make the change or something will change. If you don't make a decision, you got to make a decision at some point. So.
Well, and I think, your success is due to two things. One, having the proper systems. Two, having the proper team in place, right? I mean, without those two things, two locations does not function very well. And I will admit that I learned this the very hard way. I had a second location and thought that I had the team, thought that I had the systems, and, timing may have, played into it a little bit, 08, 09. Sure. Having that second school for me was a huge wake-up call that my systems were not where I thought they were. My team was not where I thought they were. And, it didn't work out. And for me, I haven't really looked at that second location opportunity because I know the systems are strong, but I know that I don't have the team in place to make that happen again. So, when the time comes where I've got a team member that wants to expand, that'll be something that we'll explore. Now, let me ask you this. Are you thinking about a third location?
We've already discussed it. We're again, but what's holding us right now, and my team knows this, it's not just the proper team, not having enough people, it's having the right people in the right positions. That, to me, I've learned more in the last few years about personalities and, because then obviously you can get anybody just to be there, but having the making changes, because we've made changes in different positions, like you were on the floor, now you're in more of the office. That made a huge difference because having the right person, the right position. So our team knows that. Patience. We're obviously being patient on that, but we want to make sure we do it right, because obviously the alternative is not going to be beneficial to anybody. If you grow too fast, or if you don't have the right people, you take a step backwards. So it's all in relation. But yes, to answer your question, that's something.
And so I know there's a time where I think it was when you still only had one location. You were very adamant about not coming off the floor. You're like, listen, if I could teach every class myself, I would absolutely love that. And sometimes I don't think that my school or my instructors or my students even truly realize that if I could teach every class, I would. But if I did that, now what happens to the people that I want to give opportunity and people that are on my team that are doing that now, like, can't just edge them out. Right. So it helps, people have an opportunity. What changed in your mind when you said, I don't want to come off the floor, and now you get to teach when you want to teach, not because you have to teach?
Yes. I mean, you said it. I mean, giving people opportunities was one of the main, the main reasons. Because again, if I'm on the floor, what is that person going to do? Or why does that person need to be there? So, that was the main thing. And again, I mean, knowing, people, I want to help people grow. I want to help them, get to that next level. And, you got to sometimes, as a leader, I can't be afraid to do what's necessary to hold them back to their goals. I have to make sure that if I'm telling them what the vision is, I am responsible for making sure that I have the confidence to it's not fair to someone else that I'm not doing what needs to be done for them to hit their goals, basically.
No.
I mean, so you got to just do it. And I'm glad I did, because honestly, being on the floor was great, pretty much every day, but it's just like, but I think the students enjoy better, actually, more variety of instruction. I mean, it's like playing an amazing video game. It's like, you can play it, for 3-4 months, and then eventually even fun gets boring, I mean, or even the same instructor, after a while, it's like fun and exciting, but then it's like, kind of had it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's good that we have a little bit of variety, and we have our instructors. I mean, we typically, we have them, teach, a couple. Each instructor will pretty much not teach the entire day. We usually separate that. Like each instructor will teach 2 to 3 classes max. They'll assist. They'll be on the floor talking, engaging parents. I mean, so we're a team effort, and everyone has an opportunity to get a little level of instruction from every instructor, because every instructor is different. They have something
Right.
to offer. So.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, listen, guess what? We definitely killed the 30 minutes. You were worried that, if we got to 30 minutes, we didn't have anything to talk about. So we're right there at that hour mark, which is usually where we start to, slow things down a little bit, get ready to shut down for the day. But listen, if you guys are still watching live and you have any questions for Mr. Lawrence or for myself, please comment now and put those in the comments below. But, thank you guys for watching. Aaron, it's been, it's amazing. I get to watch my students, grow up and do what they do. I've watched, my instructors come up, and of course, watching my kids is one of my greatest joys. But, to watch someone that I've known just have, a great career. I mean, I remember when you first got your black belt, watching you compete, watching you open your school, become very business savvy, very smart businessman. You've had some other opportunities that's come up that we didn't really talk about today, but you got into real estate and done some other things, and you're married now.
Yes, happily married. Love
How
my
long?
Wife. It'll be 5 years this May. So, and again, I mean, that's she's really she's not into she doesn't do martial arts, which actually is sometimes a good thing. You get a little array of the outside perspective world of what our world is, but she's been instrumental in my success as well. I don't take all the credit. It's always good from an outside perspective.
Absolutely. And I just real quick want to call out Alex Sprinkle, and I think Juanita may want to connect with you to get you on her podcast. So we'll talk about that. But Conrad Ercolano is on here right now, and I just want to make sure that we give him a shout out, because Conrad he was the first person to ever really give me a shot, other than Mr. Chikawa, to get out of that school to go and work with him at the Spectrum Club. And gosh, we've been friends for how many, seems like forever, decades. But thank you, Mr. Colano. Thanks for everything, and thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Hello, sir. But hey, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say another great instructor that I had. If anyone I try to emulate, throughout my training as a child, it was him actually, and everything that I tried to emulate in my forms. It was that's one of the inspirations I had as far as a younger student. So
one of the greatest technicians that I had the opportunity to learn from, and also one of the greatest thinkers. I mean, if you want to talk about someone that is going to make you think outside the box when it comes to Tang Soo Do, Master Colano always had that ability to make you look at it from a different point of view. So yeah, 100%. great instructor. And again, we're so fortunate to have so many different types of it. You go from a Steve Clark to a Conrad Ercolano to a Mark Cox to a Tiffany Wing, Dennis Ichikawa.
There's something different.
Whoa, like all of them had so much to add. And I think that's what has made you such a well-rounded martial artist. You've got a little bit of everything sprinkled.
I got a little bit of everything inside me, basically, when I step on the floor. So I'm a melting pot, so to say. So
yeah, but that's a great thing. Well, listen, again, it's been amazing to watch you grow into the leader that you are, and it's been an amazing opportunity telling your story. And I do want to reiterate what you said about your wife supporting you. No successful person, successful people usually have that wife or significant other that are right there, whether she's a martial artist or not a martial artist, to have that reinforcement behind you. I know that is a really strong driving force for you, as I know it is for me as well.
Absolutely.
So having that strong support system. But who knows? Maybe you'll get her out there. And you just never know.
You never know.
Never say never. But hey, guys, this has been a heck of an interview today. Super excited to have shared this time with you, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you.
And appreciate everybody that's watching. Make sure to watch again. We got an amazing guest coming up on Wednesday. We have Ron Graciano coming up. And then we have J.R. Spear coming up. I just booked Pat Miletich. I don't know if you guys know Miletich Training Systems. Trained Matt Hughes, Jens Pulver, amazing training camp back in the day. He was the first ever UFC welterweight champion. So I'm pretty excited about that one.
Cool.
And so many more guests. But Aaron, thanks again for sharing your story today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you everyone for watching. It was a pleasure. So.
Well, guys, go and follow Aaron Lawrence. He's on Instagram. He's on Facebook. Quest Martial Arts in Reseda and
Canoga Park.
Canoga
Park. Yep.
Canoga Park. Right. So go check him out. You can find him online. And if you want to connect with him and have him on your podcast, I will help you make it happen. But for now, enjoy the rest of your President's Day today, guys. Enjoy an amazing week. Go out, live your best life, best version of yourself every single day. Keep growing, keep learning, keep training. Thanks again, Aaron.
Thank you, guys. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.